Like I said, sometimes it was just for one episode, and that's basically what it was. They would just do it for one episode, and that was it. I don't think they ever did it for more than just one. But then we get to another trope of mine that, not of mine, but another favorite trope of not just mine, but of a lot of people. And that is the melting trope. Now, TV tropes has two sections on this. They have they have the I'm melting section and they have the lustful melt. Now, the I'm melting section deals with characters basically being melted into puddles of goo. Either if it's a villainous character being destroyed, if it's a good guy character, it's either through sacrifice or temporary meltdown before they're restored. It happens. The majority of the time, it happens in anime, and sometimes it happens in Western animation. Does it happen in live action? Of course it does, but not as much. It mostly happens in the two mediums I talked about. Does it happen in comics sometimes? Of course it does. But like I said, only in the mediums, but mostly in the mediums I've talked about. Now, sometimes, like I say, with anime, it all depends on what the show is. Like if it's the anime version of Guyver, of course you've got to have the melting there. And if it's an anime like, let's say, Everlong, its finale, there you go, along with a few others as well. And then, of course, you have Western animation that does similar stuff. So sometimes the melting, basically the turning into goo and being killed off kind of thing like that, is relevant. It is there. It's been there since the beginning of television and movies. But the one that surpasses it, and I've talked about this before in length, either through text or on video, is the lustful milk gag. The lustful milk gag is one that's lasted for a long time, and it's basically where a female character, and sometimes a male character, will get so enamored and attracted to the other gender or something like that, that through the animation, you'll see that character melt into a puddle of goo. And sometimes the lustful milk could be permanent or temporary. And sometimes, depending on how the episode is written or the cartoon short is written, sometimes the character can uh, revive themselves. In other words, they could pop back to normal by themselves. A good example of this is Tiny Toons. There were several episodes where you had Babs do it. You had Babs do it in Europe in 30 Minutes. You had her do it in the Christmas special. And both times she popped back up and reformed herself. You saw it in Europe in 30 Minutes. It happened off screen in the Christmas special, but it happened. It's happened to Plucky Duck. He's done this a couple of times. He's been able to reform himself, I think, in the Pluck Tracy story he did. It took Roderick Rat to scoop him up with a cup and out of a pool and pour him down to revive him because he was in such a, I guess you could say, relaxed state, in such a state of bliss. He probably didn't even consider himself to be a duck anymore, just a puddle of goo. And that's basically about it with Tiny Toons. And Animaniacs took advantage of this as well. They did this with Dot and Space Probe, but she reformed herself. They did this with Minerva Meek, not once but twice. Airing wise, uh, from a broadcast standpoint, her first short, Moon Over Minerva, which was actually her second from a production standpoint, but broadcast-wise was aired first, she melts into a multi-cream puddle, and the only way she's reformed or revived is Wilford, who has who is a werewolf, and in his Fabio-like alter ego, he has to pick her up and wring her out like a wet towel. Just he has to pick her up like this, wring her out, and just basically put her back to normal. And then in her second short, Meet Minerva, which is actually production-wise her first one, she melts into a puddle by melting right through the arms of the male mink that she's supposed to escort or show around town. She melts literally through his arms, through his hands, in half. I mean, she literally does a split melt to where one half goes this way, one half goes that way, and she becomes nothing but a white puddle with yellow trim. But unlike Moon over Minerva, she's able to revive herself. Now, this trope has also occurred later on in other shows as well, especially more modern shows. Like Groove High had it, and what was it? News at 11 had it. They all have it in their own different way. Captain Flamingo had it. Spliced had it. Heck, back in 1944, the Porky Pig short Swooner Crooner had it with a black. I know it sounds crazy, but with a black hen melting into a ripply black puddle with just a little red mohawk or whatever, red frill on top. And the only way she was revived from it was when the Bing Cosby like rooster or chicken came around and started singing. Then you have Popeye that did it with Parlez-vous Woos. Basically, Parlez-vous Woos was basically a cartoon which many consider one of the best Popeye cartoons ever. And basically, any trope that happened that you can think of almost happened. You know, and at the end, you had Olive after she got kissed on the hand by Popeye and turned red like a thermometer and had steam blowing out of her ears. She says she feels like butter in his hands. And as she's saying that, she's melting into a complete puddle of butter that's running down the floor. And all you see at the end is just a puddle of yellow butter with her face, and that's it. Just her eyes and a smile, and that's it. So this has happened. This has happened before. And it's what makes it one of the most popular tropes to constantly be used all the time. Like I say, you take a look at Groove High. They found a very creative way in their animation segments for the story to do it, or for the episode to do it. I mean, with the animation version of Zoe, they had her melt into a puddle of water. There you go. With Vanna in News at 11, they had her melt like wax, according to what TV Trope said. So you had all these different situations. You had Elizabeth and Captain Flamingo melt into a puddle to the point that her little pigtails, were on top of the puddle, and as the puddle was just kind of spreading out like this, the pigtails were going like from where they were to like this. So again, this is what makes this trope so popular with animators at times, because they can go in directions with this trope that no one else would dare go into. And that was basically one of the best aspects about it. They went into different directions with it, which was pretty cool for the time. It was pretty cool for the time, and just checking something there. Pretty cool, and they still constantly try to use it. Now, I haven't seen anything recently or heard of anything recently. I still have the belief that MLP FIM on the Discovery Family, Hasbro's big show, big hit, if you will, MLP FIM, they're eventually going to get it. They're eventually going to have some character, one of the main six do. Whether it's Pinkie Pie, Rarity, or heck, even freaking Twilight. They're going to have it happen. And I don't know if it's going to happen in the new season. I don't know if it's going to happen in future seasons. I don't know, but it's going to happen. And now, last but not least, let's talk about something that's very similar to what I mentioned in the first video, which is sort of in the same category as possession. Let's talk about fusion / merging / absorbing. Now, fusion and merging is basically almost the same thing. When a character merges or fuses together, depending on the anime or the animation or the show, sometimes the character just fuses with them, and all they kind of gain is maybe the knowledge of how to use a certain power or weapon, and that's it. Sometimes when a fusion or merging happens, depending on the show though, sometimes the characters will be a combination of the two. You'll see kind of something like a coloring, a facial look, some kind of a quirk or whatever that represents the other character in some way. And sometimes, it can be fun. I'll give you a good example. There was one called Vivid Red Operation that came out. It was an anime that came out about a year or two ago. And basically the main premise is you had our main protagonist, when the situation called for it, she would merge with one of her teammates, and they would become a combined version of who they both were, and it would work. They would basically this is how it would work. The main protagonist would either be front and center, depending on who she fused with, or she'd be in the background, kind of helping them out. But the other person would be represented by the coloring, like their hair coloring, their hairstyle, and all that, and they would be able to communicate mentally, I think, in the mind. So it all depends. And the transformations kind of gave you an idea of what the possible fused personalities would look like or something, or act like. Now again, Vivid Red Operation isn't the only one. You've had UFO Valkyrie that did this with two of their characters, and they fused together. And what was ironic is the only way they could fuse together if they were angry. If they disagreed and they were angry at each other, that's the only way they become one individual. And they had a name for the combined version. But if they got along, they agreed with something, they would separate. Kind of weird, but that's what would happen. So this has happened a lot. Heck, Steven Universe on Cartoon Network even does this right now with its three main female protagonists. Sometimes it would have two fuse into one, or all three fuse into one, which is kind of crazy. But it would happen. So this has, the fusion merging has happened before, but like I said, it all depends on the take. It all depends on the take. Sometimes it can be a fusion or merging that has elements of all the different characters represented, either through hair, design, clothing, whatever, or just be something to where they gain the power. Then gaining the power kind of goes into the absorbing trope. The absorbing trope is basically when a character gets absorbed into another and that person gains their power. Dragon Ball Z has been known to do this, especially with the villainous character Cell. He did this several times with a few characters, mostly the android characters at first, like Android 17 and 18. And this happened, of course, depending on the creative writing, happened for a couple of episodes, if not for almost the whole season, before the characters were brought back. In other words, regurgitated later on. But the way the absorbing is sometimes, depending on how it's viewed and created, is a character will be absorbed into another, and either they'll kind of have little things sticking to them, to where the energies and the knowledge will be siphoned off and given to the person that's absorbed them, or the character will get absorbed to the point that when they're inside, they'll just spread all over. In other words, they'll be not only absorbed into the body, but the thing is they'll start being absorbed all the way throughout the entire body. To where it is to the point that, yeah, they're there, but they're in different portions. They're not whole anymore. I know that sounds strange, but that's sometimes how it's done. How writers do it sometimes in these shows. That's basically what an absorbing trope is at times. And like I said, it all depends on how long it is. And mostly animes do it, and sometimes Western animation does it. But like I said, it's all depending on, how it's represented and done at times. So that's basically what the absorbing trope is. But anyway, that's all the tropes I can think of. I know I've probably forgotten some tropes, like the transformation trope I've talked about a little bit with the monster and creature transformations and the inanimate transformations. One I forgot to leave out, one I forgot to mention, of course, is Utena, Revolutionary Girl Utena, which is basically in the same category as Turbo Teen, almost. See, Turbo Teen basically was because the main character got involved in a lab accident that caused him to fuse with his car so that when he got hot, he would turn into a car. When he was cold, he turned back into human. And with Revolutionary Girl Utena, it was kind of one of those climaxes that made you go, well, what was the point of this, until you found out the reasoning. And that is, well, it's a kind of a complicated reasoning that Utena was basically the key and the means to get her and Anthe out of the dream world-like environment they were in. So Utena became a car, and the ring that Anthe had in her hand became the key. Sounds strange, right? Basically, it was like Sleeping Beauty in reverse. It's like Anthe for most of the movie was the princess, Utena was the prince. Now the roles were reversed. Utena became the Sleeping Beauty princess, Anthe became the prince. Confusing, I know, but that's basically how that worked with the card transformation for Utena and what it represented. And yes, she did return to normal, even though she went through two different card forms, and towards the end got crushed into practically almost nothing. She was able to reform after that. So, but again, like I said, that's basically all I have to say about the what a trope is, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, like I said, that's all I have to say about what a trope is, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little two-part video. I apologize it was in two parts. Hopefully when the canon is charged up and everything, I'll be able to do more than just two parts with this, and we'll see what happens from there. But I thank you guys for watching, and let me know what you guys think down below. What other tropes do you think I forgot about? And check out tvtropes.com. You will enjoy it. So till next time, guys, God bless. Take care. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to settle in for a little bit and try to get myself ready to get, set for work tonight because I got to do the 5 to midnight. Thankfully, I have the weekend off. So till then, guys, God bless. Take care. Excuse me. I am out.